Larry's a long-time resident of Crawfordsville. He graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 1960, 50 years ago. Larry and his wife Donna have been married for 47 years, and they're both retired. They're parents of 2 children. Pam and husband Steve Green are school teachers in the Washington school system and are the parents of twin Fletcher and Jacob, who are 14 years old. Brad and his wife Carol are employed by the University of Northern Ireland in Cedar Falls. They are the parents of Clinton, age 15, and Emma, age 11. Larry has been a volunteer fireman and Lions Club member for 48 years and stays active in the United Church of Crawfordsville. Some of you know Larry through Fletcher Ford Motor Company, some from the country store, some through Jennings and Associate Real Estates, or possibly from him speaking at area churches. And when I found out Larry was going to be speaking, I said, well, how long have you been attending the memorial service? He says, since I was about that high. So he says he hadn't missed very many of them. So Larry, I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Memorial Day is a time for Americans to reconnect with their history and their core values by honoring those who gave their lives for the ideals that we cherish. More than 1 million American service members have died in the wars and conflicts that this nation have fought since the first colonial soldiers took up arms in 1775 to fight for independence. Each person who died during those conflicts was a loved one, cherished by family and friends. Each of them was a loss to their community, to our nation. For decades, Memorial Day was a day in our nation when we closed all the stores, communities gathered together for a day of parades and other celebrations with a patriotic theme. Memorial Day meant ceremonies at the cemetery all around this country, speeches honoring those who had given their lives, the laying of wreaths, the playing of taps. In some places, these ceremonies continue as we see here. Your presence at this event tells me that you remember the true meaning of Memorial Day. You come here as an honor to our fallen soldiers by your presence. The New Testament tells us that there is no greater love than he who gives his life for another. Our fallen soldiers have demonstrated this love, and that is what Memorial Day is all about. A little history on Memorial Day. The observance of this day was born of compassion in 1863. As the Civil War raged, grieving mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, and other loved ones were cleaning Confederate graves in Columbus, Mississippi. They were placing flowers on all the graves. They noticed nearby the Union soldiers' graves. They were overgrown with weeds. Grieving for their own fallen soldiers, the Confederate women understood that the dead Union soldiers buried beneath were the cherished loved ones of families and the communities far away. They cleaned the tangled brush and weeds and mud from the graves as well as their own and laid flowers on them too. Soon the tradition of Decoration Day for the graves of fallen soldiers spread. On May 5th, 1866, when the Civil War was over, a man by the name of Henry Wells of Waterloo, New York, closed his drugstore and suggested that all other shops in town also close up for a day to honor all the soldiers killed in the Civil War. It was a gesture of healing and reconciliation in a land that had been ripped apart by this conflict. 16 years later, in 1882, the nation observed its first official Memorial Day, a day set aside to remember and honor the sacrifice of those who died in all of our nation's wars. The forerunner of Memorial Day was born on November 19, 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln came to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He was going to help dedicate a new national cemetery to the brave soldiers who had died in the battle that served as the turning point of the Civil War. With your permission, I would like to read a portion of his now immortal address. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate We cannot consecrate. We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have fought, which they have so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead should not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln. Yes, it is fitting and proper that we gather here today to remember and honor those brave men and women who have given their lives that we might live in a free and prosperous United States of America. But in that same sense, it is impossible for us to do anything or say anything that can add to the honor that they have so nobly earned. Rather, it is our solemn responsibility to remember them and to give grateful thanks that they served when their nation called. They answered with their lives. If President Lincoln were here today, I believe he would be both amazed and disappointed because his Gettysburg Address is better remembered than the fallen men to which he dedicated it. But there is still a spark of hope because you are here today. You made time in your schedule to remember brave women who have given their lives. General Robert E. Lee once said, "It is well that war is so terrible, or we would become fond of it." The danger in not remembering the sacrifices made by these men and women is that as a nation, we may forget that the price of freedom is never cheap. Your presence here today is a living example of what we as American people should all be doing on this Memorial Day. On this day, in cemeteries all over the country, graves are decorated as we remember our ancestors and their contributions to our American way of life. We are all shaped by our past experiences. My boyhood memories of Memorial Day, always walking to the cemetery, following the veterans with their rifles and flags. We had quite a gang of kids doing that, and older people too. And as we talked earlier, even if we did have it out at the cemetery today, we don't have anyone that wants to march out there anymore. Can't. That's right. That's right. But we followed the Crawfordsville Legion American Post 593 out there, and we heard the 21-gun salute, and we heard the shells fall on the ground. And as Arvid had mentioned, picking them up, I can remember as young. Anybody here remember going out and picking up the shells? Yeah, we used to do that. That's boyhood memories. And we listened to the haunting sound of taps. I thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you. God bless America.